Hi there to all of you viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's time for the news this evening in the English language. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, viewers. Our major stories this evening: protest demonstrations are now becoming more and more frequent across the country after Meganga in the Adamawa Mutengene in the southwest region. It was another protest in Douala, this time around by commercial bike riders. The angry bikers stormed the streets of Nous, détenons and parts of Aqua, decrying what they described as police brutality on commercial bike riders in Douala. This came after one of them was reportedly brutalized by a man in uniform. The bikers say they will have none of it anymore. Our reporters were at Nous, détenons and they will be telling us what happens there in this news edition. And in sports, the Minister for Sports and Physical Education, Professor Narcis Mwelekombi, finally hands over the senior men's football team to Fekafoot. Our sportsman Smart spoke with a sports analyst, and we will also be giving us details in just a moment. Viewers, those are our list stories. Stay with us for details and more. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for always being with us. Thank you so much for having confidence in us. We told you a while ago that protest demonstrations are now becoming more and more frequent across Cameroon. After Meganga Mutengene, it was another protest in Douala. This time around, the protest was carried out by commercial bike riders. The angry bikers stormed streets of Nous, détenons and parts of Aqua. They were decrying or denouncing what they described as police brutality. Our reporter Innocent Azza spoke with some of the aggrieved bike riders. He tells us more about their grievances in the report which comes up next.
It was an electrifying atmosphere Thursday morning at the Corps Public d'Aedo au Betastero Cimetière de Daedo in the Douala 1 subdivision. Commercial motorcycle riders paralyzed circulation along the Corps Public d'Aedo Azure Road stretch, protesting the alleged killing of their colleague by a police officer Wednesday night during routine control. That their colleague was shot by a police officer because he tried to escape control. That could result to him settling the police officer with a huge sum of money or have his bike seized. Though rushed to the Lakentini hospital, news circulated that he gave up the ghost.
Il voulait fuir et le type l'a tiré sur lui. Actuellement, il est au hôpital à Kentini. Là, il est à la morgue là-bas, à l'hôpital à Kentini.
Reason why they stormed the scene of the incident, blocking the roads and demanding to be shot like they did to their brother. Other sources claim the police officer found a knife on the bike rider.
On a dit qu'il avait le couteau sur lui avant que le policier a tiré sur lui.
However, the divisional officer of Douala 1 arrived at the scene and listened to the angry bike riders. He asked them calmly to liberate the roads after showing them a video of the said bike rider alive on the hospital bed.
Fais attention, hein. Ce n'est pas lui ici là. Ce n'est pas lui ici dans mon bureau. Il est mort. Tu le connais?
Some who know the victim confirmed he is the one on the hospital bed.
C'est lui ici, non? C'est pas lui?
Oui, c'est Moustapha. Oui, c'est lui.
C'est pas Moustapha qui parle ici. C'est quelqu'un qui est mort ici, mon frère.
Je vois.
Voilà ça, voilà ça, voilà la vidéo. Moustapha est mort.
C'est le sous-préfet qui parle.
Est-ce que c'est la vraie vidéo qui n'est pas mort parce qu'on connaît comment les gars sont forts ici?
This was not sufficient to convince most of the bike riders who demanded to get to the hospital and talk with him. But the divisional officer found it impossible for the group of bike riders to head to the hospital.
Vous êtes au moins convaincu qu'il n'est pas décédé? Je ne suis pas sûr. Hein? Franchement, je ne suis pas sûr. Allez donc vous attendre. Vous me trouvez 2 personnes. Allez-vous tous à vous libérer la route. 2 personnes, on va partir à la Kentini.
No iota of trust was found on their looks even when it was alleged. The police officer in question is currently behind bars and will be tried in court for his action.
On va gérer ça en justice. Mais ce que nous faisons là, ça n'a plus de sens. Comme il n'est pas mort, on va engager le policier là en cellule.
Dis donc, laissez ce que vous dites là.
They remains adamant not to liberate the roads until the deployment of the anti-riot police who used water cannon and tear gas to disperse the bike riders. Other major roundabouts were targeted by the bike riders like Mobile Bonakwangwang in Aqua and Saint Troisième and others. But within the twinkle of an eye, they were dispersed with water cannon and tear gas by the anti-riot police who were after them. Circulation regained fluidity after a tense morning and afternoon within the city. The divisional officer emphasized that the police will continue the routine control for the safety of professional bike riders within the city, urging the concerned to cooperate.
Thank you, Innocent. As now over to the Mongo division, where the people of Jumbe Penja have expressed some of the problems they face, such as the lack of social amenities. It was during the Meet the People tour, which was effected by the TO of that area, Vo Armstrong. Law Maeru reports.
Jumbe Penja, in the Mongo division, residents have been expressing their distress for years over the same difficulties: lack of water, faulty public lighting, and unsanitary environment. It is in this context that the new divisional officer Von Armstrong launched a tool for the neighborhood to listen directly to the inhabitants.
Nous avons enregistré plusieurs doléances et je pense que beaucoup plus de 3 ordres. Premièrement, des problèmes qui concernent le problème d'eau et le problème d'électricité, donc extension d'électricité, extension d'eau ou bien la qualité d'eau que les populations ont. Et en troisième position, le problème de sécurité dans son ensemble.
On the issue of the access to water, the administrative authority announced a concrete measure concerning Quota 4 on the area most affected by the shortage.
Je viens de donner une recommandation, comme quoi, au plus tard le 11 février, soit la mairie, soit les élites de l'arrondissement de Njombe Penja, que quelqu'un prenne les dispositions, et moi-même je vais veiller à cela, de faire en sorte qu'il y a un forage dans le quartier 4 pour régler le problème d'eau.
In the same spirit, Von Armstrong emphasized the need of the community engagement to improve hygiene and establish regular sanitation efforts.
Que chacun puisse se sentir libre en tant que Camerounais et qu'il participe aussi au processus de développement de leurs différents arrondissements. Nous allons engager également des moments de réflexion à travers même les journées citoyennes de propriété, dans le sens d'apporter un mieux devenir pour nos populations dans l'arrondissement de Jombe Penja.
At the end of this tour, both the resident and the local administration now await the implementation of the announced measures, hoping to see their living environment gradually improve.
Meantime, over to the west region of the country, where some bandits have been apprehended by security forces. They have been terrorizing the inhabitants of Bafoussam for a long time now. Stolen items were found in their possession, and security forces have called on the local population to be very vigilant, as Malaglari tells us in a report which comes up next.
Displayed in front of the office of the West Judicial Police are the weapons that were used by 3 individuals in terrorizing residents of several neighborhoods in the town of Bafoussam. Their last operation on October 28, 2025 led to their arrest. According to the police officers, they broke into a home in the town of Bafoussam, tortured the victim and made away with his properties, such as TV set and telephones, leaving the man nearly dead. But thanks to the timely intervention of neighbors, he was transported to a nearby hospital. Following this recent attack, the forces of law and order were immediately informed, and investigations were launched by the anti-criminal units, which led to the arrest of the 3 suspects, aged between 35 and 45 years old. The investigation led them to a well-known criminal, which permitted the arrest of the other members. The 3 suspects have been placed in detention at the Bafoussam Central Prison while waiting for further investigations. As the end of year festive season approaches, the West Judicial Police calls on the population to stay on alert and inform authorities of any possible occurrences.
Let's now talk about the respect of fundamental human rights in Cameroon. The Cameroon bar is urging an end to human rights violations in the country. The bar president, Barrister Eric Bar, was speaking to reporters in Douala. That was on the occasion of the International Human Rights Day yesterday. Babila Jonathan tells us more.
We have decided to do this day today and dedicating it to the very legendary gentleman you see here, Patune Yondo Black, now of blessed memory.
Former Cameroon Bar president and human rights defender, late Barrister Yondo Black, takes central stage in the celebration of the 2025 International Human Rights Day celebration in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. The Cameroon Bar, under the leadership of Bar Council President Barrister Eric Bar, is paying homage to the legal mind. Another former bar president, Barrister Patrice Monte, underscores what he qualifies as significant and indelible contribution of late Barrister Yondo Black to human rights in the Republic of Cameroon. For more than 5 decades, he fought for human rights in Cameroon at different levels, a fight that took him to prison. Acknowledging the legacy of Barrister Yondo Black, current bar president Barrister Eric Bar condemns gross violations of human rights in the country, calling on the authorities to take adequate actions to put an end to the violations.
We all have a responsibility to be very civic, to see that we do things that bring us towards peace. Peace is under justice. We must seek justice.
He highlights actions being taken by the Cameroon Bar to ensure the respect of the rights of all persons within the Cameroonian territory.
It's not like by not going to the street, Monsieur Babila, it doesn't mean that we are not drinking. Because we realize that going on the streets will not do anything. You may end up losing some lives. You may end up losing some lives. We will do everything to preserve life, and we have better ways of fighting it.
The celebration of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948 is serving as a global call to reaffirm fundamental rights, equality and dignity for all people.
And now we talk sports. Days to the kickoff of the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, many supporters believe that the problems within the Lions Den have been resolved after the Minister of Sports and Physical Education, Chief Professor Nous Détenons, handed the senior men's football team to Feka Foot. That was yesterday. Our reporter KINANG Derrick spoke with a sports analyst and put together his ideas or opinions in the report. This comes up next.
After the first preparatory meeting for the Indomitable Lions trip to Morocco for the AFCON that was chaired by the Minister of Sports and Physical Education, Chief Professor Nous Détenons, Wednesday, the question of if Marc Brice has been fired popped up on the stands. Thursday, Mutation says, bye-bye Brice. Quotidien Emergence, seemingly confused, captioned the Lions Den in hostage. Who is truly controlling? While the state newspaper Cameroon Tribune puts government advocates synergy in the Lions Den. A sports analyst says,
I think the attitude of the Ministry of Sports is understandable, given the fact that the Federation had already sent to CAF and FIFA the new technical staff. The African Nations Cup is the federation that has the codes, that has the logging in order to insert the names of the players selected by the coach. And so the ministry understood that it was game over for them concerning the African Nations Cup. They were not able to impose cup match breaks.
For him,
they indirectly accepted that Marc Brice has been put aside, but no official statement has been made concerning the Belgian gaffer.
According to the sports analyst, the coach is still at the service of the state.
The coach hasn't been sacked. I mean, when you look at the text clearly from the emergency committee of Fekafoot, it states that there is a reorganization at the helm of the Indomitable Lions. Coach Marc Brice has technically not been sacked and been put at the disposition of the national team by the ministry. I believe he is now being put at the disposition of the Ministry of Sports.
by the Federation.
With the confusion in the air whether or not Mark Brice has been sacked and if the government has accepted the appointment of Pagu David by the Cameroon Football Federation, many are now asking if Cameroon will once again face the problem of the past, which is that of paying huge amounts for abusive termination of contracts.
I believe his salary will continue to be paid by the Ministry of Sports and Physical Education right up to the end of his mandate, except if he resigns along the line. But so far, I believe there is no court case here at the moment.
The Indomitable Lions are expected in Morocco Sunday, where they will commence their preparations for the AFCON.
Thanks, Matt. And that report brings us to the end of the first part of the news, viewers. Let's now move on to Talking Point. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is KINANG Derrick. He is a jurist and also a human rights advocate. Thank you, Derrick, for accepting to be our guest on the news this evening. Now, the International Human Rights Day was commemorated or is commemorated every year on December 10. That was yesterday. The day was instituted by the United Nations General Assembly. You are a jurist, Mr. Derrick. What does the respect of human rights mean or consist of in our Cameroonian context?
Greetings, Anne, and greetings to the entire Equinoxe family. Greetings to your millions of viewers out there, and thanks for having me once more on Equinoxe TV. You asked to know what the respect of human right means in our Cameroonian context. I want to start by drawing our attention to the fact that when we talk about human rights, we are talking about those basic, fundamental rights that are inherent to every human being, irrespective of your nationality, your race, your color, your ethnic background, tribe, and what have you. And when we say respect of human rights, I want to strongly believe in our Cameroonian context, the respect of human rights will automatically mean us as Cameroonians going beyond the simple fact that we've ratified be the international, regional, as well as national texts, protecting these fundamental human rights like the right to life, the right to freedom of expression, the right to a reputation, the right to a political choice, the right to freedom of movement, the right to employment, and what have you. Their respect means going beyond their existence on paper to their effective implementation on the ground. We want to see a situation in which Cameroonians are given the possibility to express themselves, irrespective of their choice or their reasoning pattern. We want to see a situation in which there is the respect of individuals, irrespective of their background, in our day-to-day existence. And until this is done and done to the latter, we would not be able to talk about the respect of human rights. So in simple terms, that is what the respect of human rights means to me in our Cameroonian context. The ability to ratify these existing conventions protecting human rights, and the ability to go beyond just ratification to ensure implementation. So until that is done, one cannot talk of human rights being respected in Cameroon.
And now, Derrick, some basic rights of a people include rights to freedom of expression, rights to access to potable water, rights to peaceful protest, etc. When we look at the happenings around us and the living condition of Cameroonians, we can also talk of arbitrary arrest and detention, people taking laws into their hands because of no confidence in the law. All of those, can all the above not push the opinion that the respect of human rights is like an illusion in Cameroon?
Yeah, it's true. When you probe through actuality, when you probe through recent happenings in Cameroon, you might want to have the impression the respect of human rights is an illusion. We are talking about an upsurge in issues like illegal detention. We are talking about suppression of the right to protest. We are talking about the inability of governance to meet up with some basic realities of Cameroonians. But I want to also maybe do a nuance by drawing our attention to the fact that these things are common in almost every part of the globe, though in different proportion. When you go through some of these challenges the country is going through, one might be tempted to think human rights is an illusion. But pardon me, permit me differ a bit with this conception, because I strongly believe, in as much as we decry the challenges we are having when it comes to the respect of the fundamental human rights of many Cameroonians, we should also be very sincere enough to state that much or little is being done, or something is being done somewhere, though there is much to be done to ensure that we get to that level where there is the respect of the fundamental human rights of Cameroonians, and it is being felt. Remember, since 10 December 1948, with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, these rights are there and they've been increasing in their numbers. We're talking about fourth generation now with the advent of digitalization, and you want to believe, you might be tempted to say it is an illusion. But I'm part of those who think it is not an illusion. It is existing, though in troubled waters. It is existing, though with plenty of challenges. It is existing as we still have some very few Cameroonians out there, be they in the judiciary, in the executive, in the civil society space, or in our day-to-day life, that are doing everything possible to ensure that the push towards the respect of these fundamental human rights that of recent has come towards so many threats and might push someone to think they are an illusion. I strongly believe human rights exist in Cameroon and can be made better, though we have a lot of challenge in it.
Now, what do you think are those behavioral patterns which should be changed, or some institutions which must be reinforced in order for the people's rights to be taken into consideration in this country?
Yeah, certainly there are some behavioral patterns and institutions that must be relooked into if we want to get to a situation in which Cameroon is having a pass marked on its human rights situation. One of the first things I want to note is about the necessity to sensitize Cameroonians a lot so as to have us change our behavioral pattern and begin to put humanity first in everything we do. You know, there are so many Cameroonians that act in impunity, and there are so many of them that act out of ignorance without knowing they are violating fundamental human rights of fellow Cameroonians. So if we get to that level in which each and every individual is educated enough to get to understand that from the very moment you are put in a position of responsibility, it's not to coerce people, it's not aimed at creating tension each and every time you are called upon to exercise the duty that has been given to you. Many Cameroonians act in impunity, thinking it is the best way of living in the Res Publica. No, the Res Publica only functions well when there is a strict respect of rules and regulations governing it, and these rules and regulations must not be contravious to human rights. So Cameroonians need to go beyond that pattern of acting in impunity and to put humanity first in everything they do. That way they will treat people humane enough, and this behavioral pattern will lead towards respect of human rights. We want to talk about Cameroonians taking a behavioral pattern that stays or shuns away from complacent silence. You know, most often we have that tendency in which when the fundamental human rights of others are being violated, many people, since it doesn't concern them at that point in time, feel like it is not their thing. They act like bystanders, which is something we must kick against. We must build that behavior of synergy to speak against any situation in which any Cameroonian finds itself and its human rights are being violated. Irrespective of the advantages you think you might be getting from that situation, it is not going to help you out. It's going to, in the long run, affect us all. So we have to have that behavioral change. And
Mr. Kinang, let's come back to our rights institutions like police stations, police posts, etc. Can it be conveniently asserted that the police is our friend in Cameroon, considering that there is usually repression when there is any peaceful protest or demonstration? That means security forces are there for us and not against us. Can we say in Cameroon that the police is our friend?
These institutions and many others, I want to say, are some of the institutions that must be looked into for us to dream of having a Cameroon in which there is a respect of our fundamental human rights on daily basis by many. I also want to exceptionally also talk about institutions we find between the forces of law and order, the security apparatus of the state. We want to get to that level in which the statement which is usually made, the police is your friend, really reflects itself on the ground. Cameroonians to get to that level in which they see the police station as a safe haven and not a place where when they go there, their rights will be violated. The national gendarmerie, the military, be it as an institution or individuals working within these structures, in as much as we celebrate the good seats we have in these structures, we still strongly believe there are some bad seats that at times come to jeopardize the work that is being done by these institutions. So if these institutions and many others are looked into, and we ensure that they on daily basis improve on themselves, we are going to have a Cameroon in which I think the fundamental human rights of Cameroonians will be respected, and we are going to find ourselves in the good books of the respect of human rights in Cameroon when it comes to international recognition. These are and many more are some of the things one could bring on board to shed light on the subject matter.
Derrick, you mentioned humanity. What about humanity then? Don't you think that should also be largely considered in the fight for the respect of fundamental human rights in Cameroon?
So we have to ensure that we work towards this behavioral change as to fighting impunity with people putting humanity first, as to keeping aside our complacent silence as bystanders, to act in synergy each and every time there is a human right violation being signaled somewhere. We don't need to be passerbys, but we need to be active actors in recalling and clamoring for the respect of the fundamental human rights of any Cameroonian that finds itself in a situation of distress, irrespective of their background. And from the institutional standpoint, I'm part of those who strongly believe the first thing we want to look at is to ensure that there is the rule of law that takes pride and takes forefront in every institution we find ourselves, especially starting with the judiciary. We are talking about a situation in which Cameroon needs to work extra hard towards ensuring an independent judiciary. There needs to be a reformation of the judiciary in terms of training, in terms of formation, in terms of the spirit of the judiciary and its independence, so that all these different structures, the courts, are seen as environments or areas where Cameroonians who find themselves in a situation of distress as to their human right can gain confidence and move towards these legal institutions to have things being done the right way. To these, I'm talking about reforming institutions like our military tribunals, reforming institutions like the Special Criminal Tribunal, and reforming institutions like most of our courts, especially the courts of first instance we have in some parts of Cameroon. Once this is done, I think we might be drawing closer to a better respect of human rights in Cameroon. I also want to draw our attention towards human rights structures that needs to be given more leverage, that needs to be made known to the Cameroonian public and be given more independence and more power to sanction violators. Like the Cameroon Human Rights Commission, we discover that it is most often seen as a toothless bulldog that can bark but can't bite. Once it gets to that level in which it has the full backing of the state to ensure that it goes ahead to punish perpetrators, we might be moving towards a situation of respect of the fundamental rights of Cameroon.
Thank you, KINANG Derrick, for that input. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks so much for having me once more. It's always a pleasure talking on Equinoxe TV. I hope my exchanges go a long way to help in nation building and nothing but just that. Thank you.
And viewers, we thank you so much for always being with us. That was what we put together for you this evening on the news in the English language. We will be again together tomorrow, same time, God willing. But don't go away. Meantime, our programs continue. Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m. with Saga Lang, and the news in the French language with Jurist. Ngolo Mala will be us at 8 p.m. Bye-bye for now. I'll stay in the company of interesting programs on Equinoxe Television.